In any case, the man that I talk about is now one of my best friends, and we've gotten over the dispute that we had, and we traveled with him, Michael and I, and Daryl, and things. So, in fact, a couple people from the old BMT group in 1991, I think it was, when Daryl came back where we started being friends and do things. When I'd introduce him, this is Daryl, they'd say, they said I had put him on such a pedestal. But anyhow, that regresses from BWT.
Well, let me ask you this. You say you've never been able to run an officer in the National Community Pledge. Were you ever an officer in the local chapter?
Yes, I was newsletter editor for a number of years after Del Pass Davis died. He had been the newsletter editor. I was the chapter secretary, that position locked up, and so I was the chapter secretary. I was also the secretary. Al Benvenuti and Al Downing, no, Nat Downing was the co-chair. Quentin Jameson was the treasurer, and I was the secretary for the Midland for the first 4 years of the Midland. I have had positions that just can't run for the national office. I am now treasurer of the Midland once again. But I've had office. Enjoy it. It's one of the things I can do is I can balance a checkbook. So.
Well, now you talked about, and then you didn't go to the next two, right?
I know. We didn't go to New York. We didn't go to LA. We went to New York. Had a great time. The city was dirty, filthy, and garbage strike. We had a good time. It was fun. It was different because it was a non-alcohol serving convention for something, but they had a lot of functions, not in the bars. There was nothing in the bar that I can recall. Free. And it was some 90-some degrees, and it was 5, and past the cathedral.
Right.
But a number of people are stripping off their clothes down to, well, some people totally, but some people down like to their undershorts and dive. I look at this guy, comes up, and he's just coated in, I don't know, it could have been fecal matter, it could have been oil, but he did that, you know, there was no way.
A two-part question. Could you go through and what you've seen conventions change over the years?
Well, argued, and there was a spirit there that there was something worth fighting for. And, you know, I could be arguing with you vehemently for 2 hours and walk out of that room and let's go for a drink. You know, it wasn't the person at the 86 convention in New York. Tom Horan and James Kriegel were running, and a few others talked to my friend Mickey Pritchie to run as an alternate to Tom Horan because we say we don't want the new road because this is our organization and this is our fun organization. We don't want it to be railroaded. Well, Mickey ran and came in, he had like 8 votes out of 40 or something.
You remember there was a 4-way race for the other co-chair and Don Ransom, Ollie Lee Taylor.
Okay. That was Ollie's first no, Ollie was I met Ollie in '84. That was the first convention. Interesting. But like I say, it was very interesting. John Bush for the FIVA, very, very nice. But New York Convention, like I say, it was because it was non-alcohol, non-smoking, and a lot of people had trouble with that because in our group, a lot of people were smokers. One thing I did hear, still in New York, there was a lot of people visiting different rooms for extracurricular activities, and unfortunately, I was in D.C. and then Columbus, but I've heard from people that attended that they felt that part of the way that the HIV virus got spread so quickly is because people were partying up so much during the initial convention. And some of that was still going on in New York, and I'm sure probably in every convention. But at that time, yes, people weren't too safe for sex. So I think it was also in New York that Michael Lazowski ran for office, so maybe becoming corresponding secretary for the National for, I think it was a 4-year term. No, it couldn't have been that big in San Francisco.
It was a little later than
yeah, he had to do it in 1990 in San Francisco because he was still the secretary when we went to Washington the second time in Dominican. So that's New York. Milwaukee's I've already discussed. I didn't go to Boston, and there was an issue. And then somebody who I had hosted several times in my home told me that he never hosted anybody and sent my registration back. And it wasn't that I wasn't going to stay at the convention hotel until a raid or whatever it was. So I didn't go to that convention. Tallahassee, I wish I had gone to because as much as I thought, who wants to go to this little town? I understand that because of the treatment that they had on the university campus, the conventioneers were very much together. It was very a unifying experience, and I did not attend that one. And that was in '89. San Francisco, I was, like I say, recovering from hepatitis A at that time. I do remember discussions. Unfortunately, it's funny because they had booked an act that they thought was going to draw the local community into exorbitant rate to this female group band. They had some good social functions. They were great workshops. The next year was indeed, that was a lot of fun. That, just about all the functions were right in the hotel rather than going to different bars and different places, so that was fun. The Detroit chapter was the host for that. In '92 was the convention in Dallas, and it was 100 degrees every day it seemed. The hotel was nice. I think Ron Jefferson, one of the co-chairs, had worked for that hotel and got a real decent rate. Southland. Social event that I remember is we all went to a rodeo, and we had a big party. And at that time, Michael and I we had a one-bedroom at first. We had one person on the floor and one person sleeping in the bed with us. Now our co-chair in Milwaukee, and so it was a rather crowded room, but we all had a good time. So. '93 I skipped because of Chicago, the name change and the way I felt that was convention. '94 was in D.C. With that one, I drove from Milwaukee to D.C. and took Preston Schumacher. I think that's when Preston ran for the first time for the board and became a director for it. I really don't remember that much about the D.C. convention other than our National Association banner was stolen out of the hotel lobby. We did have, I think her name was Nora Cass.
Nina Cass.
Survivor of the Holocaust, and then she led us on a tour of the Holocaust Museum. It was very moving. Was highlight. But it was Congressman Barney Frank, and it was good. It was a bit slow, but half an hour or 45 minutes for him to show up. But that's a politician.
Right.
85 or 95, excuse me. To me was our Crystal anniversary, which was not in a BWG city at all, and the two co-chairs of that convention were Michael Harrington of Chicago. A fantastic job. They didn't have the support of a chapter or that. They did the work. Fantastic job. To me, that was the best memorial service I've seen. Also, I should regress a little bit. In 1990, we had some fantastic co-chairs also, John Teamer and Mike Warner. And that time, we were electing our co-chairs as running mates as teams. You can go back to the Creedle, and I don't think Horan ran as teams. I think they ran independently, but they said they could work together. That was in New York. And then John Teamer and Mike Warner did the team as Les Everett and Tim Wilson did. And that was the last time we had Tim West. I said Wilson, I'm sorry. But that they wanted to have staggered terms. We elected, who was first elected after? No, because we had Ed Fleming was elected in.
No, the second time that Tim and Les ran, the 1 year term, and Les got it too.
Okay.
And
Homer ran
the next year.
And then when Les's term was over, Ed Fleming ran. And he was removed by the board prior within because even though he was removed, he was not on the listing. And that's unfortunate if you look at your convention for sure. Leonard and a few others.
That's an oversight, I'm sure. I mean, intentional.
There are many things that are oversights, but it's part of the history, and it needs to be corrected because Ed Fleming was a co-chair for the Al Benvenuti and Robert Williams were interim co-chairs, and they're also after Mike Warner and John Teamer job. There was some hard feelings from the Chicago chapter because during that period they moved the national office from Chicago to D.C. And part of the comments of the Chicago chapter, which I had rejoined for a while, was that they had stolen the national office from Chicago. But there was a history on that, is that Chicago in the Gay Lesbian Center in Chicago and had offered the national free office space. And the national was staffed by Ken Allen and a few other people on a voluntary basis. And then all of a sudden the Gay Lesbian Center started charging a very high rate. The MAC Chicago at that time started passing on the cost to the national, and it was getting exorbitantly expensive. And Robert Williams and I just said his name before, Detroit, Al Benvenuti were seeing these bills and saying what's going on. They decided, number one, that they couldn't afford it, and number two, that by being in Chicago, they weren't actually having that if you're really going to be having an organization and have a national presence, it should be in Washington, D.C., so they moved it. In '97, Alan Hess and I'm going all over the place, but that's the way
Right.
mine works.
All right.
Decided that to be a change to the State Historical Society in Wisconsin and the University of Wisconsin to develop a national archives for and the depository was, I don't know how many cases, but there were many cases that were deposited there. And somewhere during the term of Al Benvenuti and Russ, it was decided to remove that archived material from the University of Wisconsin Historical Society and bring it to Washington, D.C.
I think the archive decided that they didn't want it anymore, for whatever reason.
But
Yeah.
that's unusual because the archives wanted that.
I think that's what happened.
But in any case, well, the archives were sent to Washington, D.C., and somehow in the office rearrangements, many cases of old were lost, and that's unfortunate. But in any case, we've started a new archive, and it's in California, I think in San Francisco, but I'm not sure exactly. But Doug can correct on that because he's the archivist for us. And sorry. But in any case, so I'm at Convention 95. It was fantastic, enlightening. That was the first time that I offered a challenge grant to BWP members. I do it, and I'll probably do it next year. I offer people who hate me can get me, and people who love me can get me, because either way, I offer a challenge of about $1,000. It might be more and a little bit better. That I will match dollar for dollar up to a certain amount that everyone pledges. Well, during convention week, it gives either cash or a check. It can't be pledges; it has to be paid. And then I would match. That was the first time I did that in Key West, and that was also the 15th. And I did that there, and then I did it again in convention 98, I believe it was in Florida. So, and next year we're in Miami versus Florida, which means the DA is going to put up some more money again, but that's not a big thing. In any case, so after Key West, there was convention in Cleveland. And Cleveland was the host city, but it wasn't the host of the convention. That was the first time a convention was, and it was hosted by the Midland region. And it was, I don't remember much about that convention. That's in all the functions, but for whatever reason, I have a blank over that period, and that might be the Alzheimer's that set in. But host for Paul Sears, a.k.a. Low Rent, and that was done as a fundraiser for the NAE, and it was a lot of fun, and I was hoping to do a little from time to time after that. They haven't followed up on that one. But that was the one thing that I really recollect on that. Second thing that was outside of the convention was that Ron Evans, the chair of BWP Cleveland, took a number of the female impersonators, and my husband, Michael Ross, was one of them, and they took them to some of these very nice shops in some well-to-do area of the city where folks sell expensive beaded dresses and that, and the Bortner from Baltimore was known as No Rent, and a couple others. Bernie Dean Chambers, which is Preston Schumacher, went in these stores and said they wanted to see some dresses, and clerks in the store said, well, what size is your wife? And to me, it's a funny thing because Michael Ross, when you look at him, that he's going to have a wife. And they said, no, they're for us, and we want to try them on. And the woman's faces dropped at first, and then I guess they realized that they're probably on commission, the cash register flowing, and they said, here's our dressing rooms, and they came out with the number flawless gowns. So that's little things like that where we made an impression. Convention 87, it was in 97, my years are bad. I should know numbers, but Charlotte, North Carolina. Very nice. Unfortunately, my husband didn't go with me, but I took my former partner, Daryl, along. And I was trying to pass him off to about 3 or 4 different men to have a time with to introduce him to BWP. And everyone I suggested that he partner up with, he didn't like, and he went with somebody else that I would never thought he would have gone with, but that gentleman from Atlanta, he still is corresponding with, but in any case, so things work out differently. But Charlotte was different because they had a splash party that a couple people, I don't know if they were inebriated, but they were showing more flesh than they should have because it was a public pool area, and I recall that. I don't know that I don't think I'm prudish, but I think there's a time and place for decorum, and so that was one of my recollections on Charlotte. Fort Lauderdale was the next convention. And that was in 99? 98, because 99 was Philadelphia. That was very interesting. We had a talent show where Madam, I think that was, because I don't think she performed in Philadelphia. But again, I was without my partner. He couldn't get off from work, so I went. I didn't take any, but I did room with Preston Schumacher, and I've regularly roomed with Preston, so that's sort of a I think it was in Fort Lauderdale that the House of Delegates voted not to take up the name change again for a number of years. It had come up as another issue. I think it was Matt.
That was in Cleveland.
That was in Cleveland?
It was in Cleveland.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I know it happened.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, periodically in the National Association, they bring up the divisive issue about the name change, and there are a number of different names in the organization. There's people of all colors together, there's men of all colors together, there's black and white men together, there's men of all colors and cultures together, and then there's a different one for Denver, and I can't remember what their name is. But, so, and there may be more to come. You know, it's not, the name is not so important. I realize that now, even though I have a bad feeling towards one of the names. It's what we're about is more important than our name. And what we're about is fighting racism and homophobia. And I have a problem in that I see our organization trying to take on too many issues and shooting with a shotgun and not shooting well, when we should be using a 30-06 and targeting special issues. And the two issues our organization could address would be racism and homophobia. All the others are scattered and taking our resources like chaff to the wind. So that's my gist on the Nationals, that I'd like to see us excuse me, go back to more of a singular issue or two.
I don't think we've been doing that the last few years.
No, I think we're too broadly based. In, I think it was 1987-88, a group of men from Stephen Peabody from New York, Gavin Morrow Hall, Reggie Williams, there were a few others that James Greedle, started a group called the National Task Force for AIDS Prevention, which was basically anti-HIV or HIV prevention in the people of color communities. That organization wrote and received a $400,000 a year grant from the federal government, CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Outreach. In Milwaukee, we had surveys done, and I was one of the surveyors that went out to the bars, interviewed people, to find out what they were doing. Did they know how HIV spreads? If I could. Okay. In any case, they formulated what was called the National Task Force. In Milwaukee, I was one of the surveyors. They also brought in trainers who actually had safe-sex demonstrations for, well, it wasn't solely for people of color, but primarily for people of color, and I attended some of those workshops. Gavin Morrow Hall and showed men how they could put a, well, he used a dildo and put a condom on a dildo with his mouth, and they did other things and flavors and all that. And for most of the people in the BWT group in Milwaukee at that time, they were teaching to the choir, because we had already heard that lecture many times from Mark Behar, was one of the first people that I had ever heard talk about safe sex. But some of the outside people also heard it, and I think it helped. The National Task Force functioned, I think, 6 or 7 years very strongly, doing outreach in people of color, and primarily if we're talking African American, but also in the San Francisco area also, I believe they did some work with the Asian American community. And their impetus to that was Lee Wu and Michael Fu from San Francisco. Remember that chapter, didn't you? But the National Task Force headed by Reggie Williams. And then somewhere, and I'm not sure if it was 91 or 92, they had a proposal to break away from NABWT and be becoming a freestanding organization. And we were the fiduciary holder of their money, because the federal grants had gone to us. And I can remember it was brought up at the House of Delegates, and I was adamantly opposed to the segregation and the breakaway, because I said, this is a national function. This is what's giving our name in the national, that would be the NABWT. But Reggie was adamantly presenting and very eloquently presented that, you know, a lot of people, color communities, didn't want to come to the National Task Force if they were under the umbrella of BWT. Because at that time, Afrocentricity was coming stronger in a lot of communities. So he convinced the House by a large majority, and I would think I was one of 4 that voted against the breakaway of allowing the task force to break away and take their own funds. So in any case, that happened, and the task force functioned 4 or 5 years, and doing a very good job of outreach to the African American and Asian American communities in San Francisco and throughout the country. But unfortunately, Reggie's own health started failing, and he decided to leave the task force and join his life partner in Amsterdam. He did, and subsequent executive directors of the task force, I've heard, weren't as dynamic as Reggie, and they had some financial problems. And after, I think, 2 years after Reggie left, the task force went under. And that's sad, because they really performed a wonderful function for the people of color community, by that as an African American, and in the San Francisco area, specifically the Asian American community. So that was one of the things that BWT really got started and functioned.
Well, how have you, and you've certainly touched on this already, I know, regarding some of your own friends, but how have you seen AIDS affect this organization?
Well, I have now created 18 panels for the names quilt, 15 of them being the black and white panels for people in BW Milwaukee, some for some of the other chapters, like Quincy Sykes from Kansas City. People from Kansas City forgot that he was their co-chair, and this was early on in their year, and I remembered him. And I talked to a couple of people, and they said, oh, vaguely they remember. Well, I created a panel for Quincy and them. But in Milwaukee, we lost Ken Peters, Alan Hess, Abraham Hinosa, Dwayne Leonard, Kim Ross, Richard Miner, John Mother Barnes, Theo Beverly, to AIDS early on. And it's very hard sometimes to think about good men that were very constructive. Alan was a very political activist. Everyone in the Milwaukee community politically knew Alan. And they knew Alan as a gay man who was interested in politics. And I mean, he'd go to political rallies and people would say, oh, here's Alan Hess again. But they listened to him because he had a way of presenting issues that they listened to him. Kenan Peters, very educated. He was the director of Allen Bradley Rockwell. He was their personnel director. Came down with AIDS in 90 or 91. Took his early retirement from the company and left Milwaukee, excuse me, and retired back home to Mississippi, where he passed away. Nate Dawson recently died this last year of AIDS, so it's something that's still there. I mean, it's not something that was just in the 80s or the early 90s. The HIV is there. And sadly, we're hearing from the younger people that they're practicing unsafe sex again because they've heard, oh, there's these cocktails that are going to save me. But if they don't save me, because I know some people that are on them, and they get very sick based on the drugs, and the drugs do funny things to them. I myself am HIV positive and have been since '86, but I am what my doctor calls as a non-progressive. My T cells are still up over 700, my fibroid load is under 1,000, and I'm not on any drugs and haven't been. And my doctor just says that miraculously that nothing's happening to me. I don't know what it is. I've had hepatitis twice, once the A1B, but the HIV I have, but it's not taking an effect on me. So, when I was first diagnosed with HIV, I thought the end was next year because I heard about it prior to Convention 87. It was December of 86. So I've been very fortuitous in that HIV has not progressed, but I am HIV positive. So, and I have not made a secret of it. I haven't broadcast it over, but I guess this broadcast is a little bit more. But people in my chapter and in the Midland for sure know, and I've attended HIV functions within the NA, so people know that way. But HIV, can be prevented, and it should be. And the word has to get out there. And for younger people, they have to realize that you don't want to live a life of protease inhibitors and all the others, or you're taking 8, 9 pills at a regular schedule and waking up. And well, now they've got somewhere people only have to take 1 or 2 a day, I believe, but they still have side effects.
Well, did you finish going through all the conventions, or did you stop? I think you stopped at Fort Lauderdale. You want to finish
Okay,
the
Fort
last
Lauderdale was followed by Philadelphia in '99. That was fun. City of brotherly love, and we truly had love. That was fun again for me because my partner went with me, Michael Ross. I had a great time. I was a delegate again, and I love being a delegate. I love the banter back and forth, and I can argue with you today, tonight, tomorrow, and we can still be friends. I don't take it personal. Some people, because I raise my voice, might think I'm personal, but it's not. But I like a good argument. And convention there was interesting. They had the city council at the banquet. They had I think they called Hummers entertain. It was
Mummers.
Mummers.
Mummers,
From the
right.
Mummers. Fantastic. And I stopped after the program and talked to a couple, and they said, I said, well, this is a gay convention. They said, what do we care? And it was just great. It was a good convention. Some very good discussions were had. Again, they brought in a number of different speakers. They had a couple of female speakers that were really good. And there's been several conventions that have Mandy from North Carolina has been a regular, and she's considered a adjunct member, I guess, of the National Association. Mandy Carter, and she's here again. I saw her today.
That's right.
So
Very nice.
she's a fantastic person. Spark was politically active and was very active in the campaign to unseat Jesse the Devil Helms from North Carolina. Unfortunately, that failed. But last year was my least favorite convention of all. And part of it might have been because I only got to go for Thursday through Saturday because I just changed jobs and I didn't have a lot of time. So I missed the House of Delegates. But I was out on my own because Michael couldn't travel again. And I got there and I felt depressed. And what really bothered me is for the second time in a row they didn't list my chapter appropriately. And, we're paying our chapter dues as BWMT Milwaukee, and they list us as PACT or MACT Milwaukee. That got me angry. So then I went to the co-chair, the Caucasian co-chair of the convention. I said, where did you get that from? And he said, we got it from you. And I said, no, you didn't, because if you got it from me, it's BWMT. Then he changed it and said, well, we got it from the national office. I said, how can you? Because I'm the one who sends them the dues and they got BWMT. So I was very upset that, number one, he wasn't telling me the truth. And second of all, that we couldn't even get our name right in the program. And then this year, again, we're listed as PACT Milwaukee. It's the third year in a row that our name is wrong. And I am one of the major contributors to this organization. I'm getting irritated enough that I might just stop making payments until they can get our name right. That's all I ask, right? But anyhow, like I say, San Francisco convention to me was my least favorite of all. The second time. First time I was sick in San Francisco. The second time I was by myself. I didn't like the idea that I didn't get to go to the whole convention because I like to go for the whole convention. I like the House of Delegates, and I missed all that. The talent show was interesting. In fact, it was very good. The Midwest usually sponsors a reception, and they did it at a bar, and I just thought that was tacky the way it was done and everything else. And the archive historical group was trying to make a presentation. You couldn't see it and hear it because they had it on TVs, and the music from the bar was overwhelming. And to me, that's important. People have to know their history, and if they couldn't do that.